I guess I wanted to say it's cool that you were at least fair, and then you brought up the same thing. These price pumpers are, I don't know, is it in your mind? Is it something that it bothers you because you feel like you're right and they're wrong, or is it more
Hey
like,
guys, it's Flying Cryptos. I just turned the mic on. I wanted to give him a chance to speak and everything and go over all this stuff. I don't think scolding people is the answer. I mean, that's not. I put reflection into that thought as well. I mean, we don't want to start just attacking everyone in the community, but like the way you started off with the spaces here, I think was great. I mean, it's not so much maybe talking about the price; it's maybe talking about the unrealistic expectations, the pumping, the figures. Um, I think a lot of people, a lot of new investors coming into the space, they mix up targets with what we would like to see Litecoin be someday and could very well happen. I mean, I wouldn't surprise me to see four figures on Litecoin in a couple years, but to put a target on it is misleading, and it's really hard to back that up because with news events, I mean, you could go on and on about the things that could impact the price long term. Especially if you zoom in, you look at the daily, the weekly, and we have these big waves going up, big waves coming down. I mean, we might only get halfway there and then enter a short-term bear market, and people are going to hold on to that and get really discouraged. So calling them targets and putting time frames on a lot of these uh, extremely high price targets, I think that's the real problem.
yeah, and time frames are a big part of that too, because sometimes people will come in and, I mean, like you said, I'm sure everybody in this room, anybody who's invested in crypto, has, will Litecoin get to $1,000? Sure,
Yeah.
like that wouldn't be crazy to anybody. We've all been here long enough to see it.
Yep.
You're not helping anybody, right?
Absolutely. I don't want to put off the image that we shouldn't talk about the possibilities. I mean, we should certainly be, looking at the chart, zooming out, and considering these as possibilities. It's just calling them targets, is really misleading. I mean, to see people put $5,000, $10,000 Litecoin by end of year, or and then after that $10,000, $20,000 Litecoin, I just don't think that is helpful.
Well, I think, and that's a little bit of a, it almost leads me into something I was thinking about, because I took this trip to Vegas, and you guys know that, like, if anybody's drank, when you go drink to excess, the next morning you wake up and sometimes your mind gets in some weird places. And I started thinking about, like, you know the positive and the negative, and like, if you're not if it's not positive for the community, is it like by default negative? And what is gained from it? My big concern with it is, I mean, there's the letdown. I feel like it becomes where you mix in with everybody else, where it's like Litecoin no longer stands out for its unique qualities because you're just doing what everybody else does. And I mean, the Bitcoiners do it too, which is, makes me equally nuts. It's like, why, you know, if it's a great technology, it's just be supportive of the technology and explain why it's valuable, and it'll the rest will run its course. So,
Absolutely.
uh, I mean, why Litecoin? You were here last week, and so you might you do. I know you do some technical analysis, and sometimes you, like just today, you had a pretty wild top, but you have time frames generally. Um, I don't know. What do you think about all this?
Well, to me, like, I don't really care too much what other people post. I mean, like, because I've been around, I guess, a long time, and so I have my own thesis, my own idea of what Litecoin is. I have sort of contrarian opinions, and also, like, I know a lot of people would disagree with me, and I do put out like crazy predictions, but I'm not really like a technical analyst. I've learned it over the last 5 years, but I'm not a day trader.
Well,
I
you're almost
just
like that. You're almost like that Peter Brandt, right? Where he looks at the chart and says, "Yeah, there's no reason." What would he say? where he looks at a
Yeah, I
cup
don't know. He had
handle
some
and says, "Oh,
chart from like,
$1,000 easy." It's like what?
yeah, he's like, you're being conservative with the $1,000 price target. I take technical analysis as like a tool to correct my fundamental analysis. So like, I don't know. I have this view that if narrative around Fed rate hikes totally just dies down and all this money that had been scared, tries to chase assets into a sort of illiquid environment. Like you look at Bitcoin illiquid supply dynamics, it's at all-time highs. So like the amount that a dollar can move price, like move market cap, is like a 20 to 25x multiple probably here, given the illiquid supply constraints. So if that sort of dynamic plays out, which I don't know the exact probabilities, but it's definitely not impossible, I think you'll have a lot of coins moving to exchanges, moving around, people, creating this positive feedback loop to the point where, Bitcoin fees rise like 100, $200. And then given Litecoin's network effects and it's being like the perfect substitute to Bitcoin, you could really see demand sort of skyrocket like we've seen in the past for that same reason. So I don't know what price target does that actually get to. I have no idea, but I wouldn't bet against a 4-figure Litecoin price not happening, right? Or I would bet against that in the medium term because I think it's a probability based on my own fundamental analysis. And then there's also risk to the downside too. Like I also understand that in this weird, uncertain environment, that without real fundamental demand for the chain, like the price can tank too. So,
Well, and I think for me, and maybe flying crypto, my concern is that it just doesn't. It reflects badly upon the community as a whole. Yeah, and so I'm trying. What's your big concern with really aggressively unrealistic TA? What do you feel like it's doing? Just getting people wrecked?
So yeah, I mean, everything that Y Litecoin just said, as far as he's a fundamental analyst and he likes to double check that with technical analysis, and I think that's a fair approach. That's his personal approach, and you got to do what works for you as a trader. It's just a lot of people and like, getting to your question, a lot of people on Twitter, newcomers to the space, people that don't know a lot about TA, that are just learning it. I'm just going back to my early days in trading cryptocurrency back in 2017. And that's where I learned most of the stuff is I would follow people on Twitter as a new person. And if they had a lot of followers, I would assume they're credible. And a lot of people that post those crazy targets draw followers. And,
Yeah, for sure.
it's up for you as a new investor to do your own research, right? And we all say that, and you're always responsible for your own decisions. But there are a lot of naive newcomers in the space. And I think, to help, if you want to help the health, let me say this correctly, not the health of Litecoin, but the health of Litecoin's price action in the market itself. If we can get newcomers into the space that aren't getting wrecked and don't have this big image of Litecoin going to X figure by the end of the year, and joining all these pump accounts, and you know what I'm trying to say. You're going to watch them out of the game. They're going to lose a lot of money. They're going to get discouraged. They might become a Litecoin hater at that point.
Yeah,
They might just
sure.
not want to get back in. So
Yeah,
really,
I know. Personally, I would be super sensitive if I bought. So I got a coin here and a couple coins here and there that I bought a long time ago, and it just goes to nothing. And it might come back up this time around, and you're like, I'm not touching that thing again, right? So that's
absolutely.
but
And a lot of people felt that way when Bitcoin was down like $3,000. A lot of people didn't get in, and now the market has moved, and people are getting interested again. And That's exactly how it works. Until you're in the game and you really learn the ropes and you know what to expect and how to identify the market cycles and all that stuff. But there's a lot of people that get washed out and they won't come back in because of it. And that that is a concern. Something to think about.
Yeah, I personally feel like you probably shouldn't be trading. Generally, as a general rule, 90 some odd percent of people probably, if you can't dedicate a lot of time to it, you're playing with fire, right?
Correct. And a lot of these people they don't trade, but they buy and they'll sit there and wait on the basis of that analysis from those accounts. And then
Right.
they'll ride it down and some of them will hold it and they'll hold it for years and some of them they'll capitulate and they will sell and they're not coming back.
Or something comes up in their life that they have an expense that they put themselves in a bad spot by over investing. You know what I mean? Putting
Absolutely.
too much liquidity into it.
Absolutely. And that, and like, in the interview with Charlie Lee there, he mentioned exactly that reasoning with his problem with $100,000 Bitcoin targets was that people will get excited and they will end up putting too much money into the game, more than they're willing to lose.